Welcome to Stay Tuned with Mikey and Chad. I'm Mikey,
I'm Chad.
and today we've got two guests actually. We've got Tony Donahue. We're going to talk about the Malice of the Palace documentary, and we've also got Kevin Bowen from 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. We're going to talk about Colts camp and how they look today against the Panthers, and kind of get his views on how the team's looking right now.
But before we get started, Mike, I wanna send out some prayers and some goodwill to a family member of mine. It's my wife's step sister's husband. Unfortunately, he had a stroke a few days ago, and then while in the hospital, he had a second stroke. So if everybody out there, just say a little prayer for him. You know, prayers do work, so we want to make sure that we let him know. Don Ivy, you're in our prayers, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got Tony Donahue with us right now, host of the Tony D podcast. Where can you find that?
Anywhere you listen to your podcast, so iTunes. It's based off of Anchor, but you can get it on Spotify as well. So check that out, and check out my website, TonyDini.com.
Awesome. So you've watched the Malice of the Palace documentary. We'll just get straight into it. Actually, before we do that, I actually want to ask you another question. How was Nashville last weekend?
Nashville was a great time, besides the fact that it was like 95 degrees. Great fun.
Right.
The vibe, obviously, in Nashville is always a good time. I had a lot of fun. I'll give you one quick funny story. So, my parents and my brother flew in from Nashville, and flew into Nashville from Seattle. My aunt lives right off Vanderbilt and Belmont's campus, so that's about 2 miles off of Broadway, 2 miles east. So Friday night, I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go out and just explore and meet up with some friends that I know are down here. Ended up meeting with a guy that I hadn't seen in like 20 years. Randomly ran into him after the Brooks and Dunn concert, of all things. But long story short, I got pretty liquored up. And the scooters that they have there shut down at 10 p.m., so you can't ride on those. And Uber there, Uber, Lyft, all that stuff is extremely up there in price.
Right,
so
yeah.
A surge is the word I'm looking for. So I was like, shit, I'm just going to walk it. You know, we'll just walk. I'll be fine. So I'm walking drunk as hell 2 miles to a house I hadn't been to since I was like 13 years old.
Right.
With 10 phone. So luckily my 16-year-old brother was still awake inside the Airbnb where we were staying, which was on my aunt's property. And I made it home. So we definitely had a blast down there.
Yeah.
And good little weekend.
It was a hell of a race, man. I mean, that was really kind of insane.
It was the track was very interesting. Obviously, it wasn't that wide. Racing on the bridge was super cool. The craziest thing I saw all weekend, though, was Vince Neil opened up for Brooks and Dunn. They had a bunch of concerts down there. Vince Neil comes on and does 3 songs. One was not Dr. Feelgood, which I thought was bullshit.
Right, yeah.
And so I'm yelling for Dr. Feelgood, and he comes out and does Kickstart My Heart, and you couldn't understand the words he was saying, and he couldn't get the voice high enough to do the hook to it. So very interesting there.
Kind of an odd pairing, Vince Neil and Brooks and Dunn. That's kind of an odd pairing together.
Yeah, Vince Neil, Brooks and Dunn were the first night, and then Saturday night a guy named John Party played. I don't really know him, not a big country guy. Yeah. And then Sunday night was supposed to be Alan Jackson, and he had to cancel, so it was Overage Boys, which is ironic because I wasn't going there anyway, but I did end up at Alan Jackson's place on Sunday night karaokeing, and then I went to Wild Beaver and karaoke. So Scott Dixon and Dario Franchitti can now say that they've seen me rap out in Nashville. So I was like, all right, well, I just rapped in Nashville, Tennessee at the Wild Beaver in front of a bunch of foreigners, so there was that.
I mean,
it don't sound half bad.
That you can't get any better than that. So it sounds like you had an awesome time, man. So we've all watched the documentary, The Malice of the Palace. So especially for people like you and I, you and I both know the whole backstory and everything. Was there really any information that came out in the documentary that you didn't know or that was new to you?
Actually, the first thing that I didn't know which kind of pissed me off the most, was I did not know that Jamal Tinsley told Ron Artest, like, yo, you can get your $5.
That was the big one.
That kind of set the fire.
Yeah, I mean, that absolutely set the fire, because Ron Artest and whatever the hell is going through that guy's mind at any given time. And then that kind of set off the entire thing. I didn't really know much about, the players going to court and all that kind of stuff. I think we all can agree that Pacers got pretty hosed on the entire situation.
What the hell is that?
It's a horn going up in the background. But I did not know that. And then the guy who actually threw the beer, I did not know that he never really showed any kind of remorse of any sort. So, but definitely the Jamal Tinsley thing was something that I did not know about and was very shocked by, because that kind of, I obviously now know why Jamal Tinsley wasn't a part of that documentary. And I think if he doesn't tell Ron Artest that, none of that shit ever happens.
Right.
Yeah, that was kind of where I was going to go with it. You look at it, and he kind of set the match to the flame, and then he was nowhere to be found when these guys are fighting, 30,000 people.
Yep. Yeah. And no, you're exactly right. And it's crazy to look back and all the different camera angles they have. You don't see Jamal Tinsley once. That guy's probably dead if Jermaine O'Neal doesn't slip on the floor that he punches. And, you look at, like Reggie was just trying to protect and get everybody out of there. You feel bad for, like, Mark Boyle and Slick Leonard and Mark Monteith, who are sitting there courtside.
Yeah.
Scott Pollard is trying to get people out of the way. Jonathan Bender was trying to. I mean, you kind of forgot how many guys were on that squad.
Yeah.
One thing that kind of made me laugh through the whole process was, you brought up Jonathan Bender, was he was in a suit once again.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, that's the Jonathan Bender that we know. He seemed to always be hurt through his career with the Pacers.
Yeah, and you just kind of feel bad, because the entire documentary, you can tell it in everybody's voice that they knew that they cost Reggie probably his best chance, obviously outside of 2000, which I think that they could have went on, and we saw what the Pistons did winning the NBA Finals and winning 4-1. So kind of a what if for the Pacers, and then it sets the franchise back 10 years. They drafted for guys that were okay. I mean, Troy Murphy, Mike Dunleavy, like
whatever.
They had but those guys are never going to get you anywhere. Like Troy Murphy would have been like the 7th best player on a lot of these teams. So
right.
I still love Jermaine O'Neal. I liked what he had to say. But again, we don't know what these athletes are feeling, what it's like. Every time you're on the court, on the road game, somebody's yelling at you, and it's a heated rivalry, and that kind of intensified it. And the Pacers had that cocky attitude of like, yo, we're going to kick the shit out of you, and we are kicking the shit out of you. And then,
right.
Frustrations kind of boil over in those types of situations. So wish it would have been obviously something different, but of course it wasn't.
One of the things that really got to me is that fucking fan that squared up on Artest and has no remorse to this day. Thinks that thinks that they wronged him, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, do you realize what you did? You crossed a huge line that no one ever crosses. Do you?
Well, and like you said, I mean, when they asked him, like, were you like, do you have any remorse to the guy that got punched by Ron Artest and he ran right by you? Nope. Like that guy that's probably the guy that's just proud of himself. He's got a wife that's overweight that, won't fucking leave him because she knows she's never going to find better.
Right.
And he can do whatever he wants and do whatever he wants. And he probably drives one of those big ass F-350s. I don't know if you guys do or not, but it's probably got the truck nuts on the back.
That guy.
No, it's not an F-350. I drive a normal Silverado. I don't have a little penis, so I don't have that problem. I don't have to overcompensate.
Nobody cares. All right. But one of the things that I really appreciated about Ron was that he seemed very apologetic about, because everyone knew that it was kind of O'Neal's team. It was J.O.'s team at this point, and he seemed really upset that he kind of cost that team a chance to compete for the title. I honestly I felt bad for him listening to him talk.
And it was so early on in the season too. Like, those guys were playing well, but they all hadn't really cored yet and gel as a core. Yeah. And when that happened, it was like, okay, Reggie's never, like, who's he gonna play with? Like, Scott Pollard was on the freaking bench. They like Travis Best. I mean, there were guys on that team that they couldn't carry the burden. You had the best perimeter defenders in Ron Artest and Steven Jackson and Jermaine O'Neal, who was on the way to being an absolute superstar.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think he was still a really good player and a star, but he was on his way to kind of taking the torch over from Reggie, and that's what that year would have been about. You think back on it, how long it's been, but it's like in my lifetime, the Pacers have gone to the finals once. They've gone to the Eastern Conference Finals in my lifetime, 3 or 4 times, and the last time was 2014. So it's like, what is it going to take for this franchise to get over that hump again?
Yeah.
And I'll spending money and being better in the draft. And we talked about this last week, the three of us, how we like to work in a way he's able to score. We've seen what he's kind of done in summer league. So
he's lighting it up, man.
But man, that whole and Reggie just knowing, just seeing everything play out, and you don't realize it at the time, like what's happening, and then the suspensions come down, and Reggie's like, oh shit, that's. And then I think there was rumors that he was going to go to Boston for a while, and he never did. Yeah. But yeah, that took away. That was the best Pacer team. I think even better than what they had in 2000 when they went to the finals and lost to the Lakers.
I think they were better than that 2000 team. And one thing I did not know was that the cop that had the mace pointed at Reggie did not know that he was Reggie Miller. That was I
have a hard time believing.
I almost died laughing when he's like, I didn't know it was Reggie Miller. How the hell do you not know it's Reggie Miller? And
I agree with that 100%. Like, how the hell? Like, he's been in this building before, but two, even if you don't know who he is, it's
why are you
human being in a suit? It's not like this guy's sitting courtside because he's a banker,
right?
At 6'7" or 6'6", whatever Reggie is.
Right.
This is a very oversized human being wearing pretty nice clothes. I don't think this is a guy that's running down from the 19th row that had seats in the upper deck. It constantly moved down in the fourth quarter. Like, give me a break.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's one thing I wanted to bring up too. As I was watching the documentary, there was the lady that was part of the security team. And she said that one of the people that had gotten hit, they were shuffling people into her office, and she said that she overheard one of them say, hey, wouldn't it be funny if we acted like we got hurt so we could sue him?
That was the guy that scored up on our
That's the kind of people that you see in Detroit, evidently. I mean, I don't know, because I've personally never been to any kind of athletic function in Detroit. I've been to Detroit, but not for an athletic function.
I mean, that's why I think people from Detroit, I still think people from Detroit are assholes. You can't convince me otherwise.
Yeah, and you think about, I mean, and that's the first thing that's on your mind is you're 10 minutes away from the situation. Like, oh shit, we can get some money out of this. Not like, oh shit, it's the guy who got clocked courtside laying there. Like, what's wrong with him? See, I mean, that dude, because he was in there. It seemed like he was in that room, and then they took him. Like, it was fine because they showed him walking by.
And then he's on the stretcher. Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. And I wonder if that conversation happened. Like, it's going to look 10 times better on you if you leave here in the back of an ambulance.
Yeah.
And then you can go, what the hell, and sue. So.
And that seems like that's what it was. It was just a money ploy at that point, because he was standing just fine after he got clocked.
I didn't realize, I never saw the guy that threw the chair before whenever I watched 2 nights ago, whatever. I never knew who that was, and they zeroed in on him on that documentary. I'm like, that fucking he threw it into the crowd, not at the Pacers. He threw that into Detroit fans. What the hell is wrong with these people?
I think, and I've never been in this situation, and I hope I never have to, but I also think that when there's chaotic moments like that, and you see, like last summer when people were protesting and there was riots and all this shit, that led to people just like, oh, I'm going to bust open this TJ Maxx in downtown Indianapolis and start stealing stuff.
Yeah.
And then people are involved in that situation, and they're like, man, I could hit somebody and get away with it, or I can do something that I might not ever have a chance to do again. That's violent and chaotic. I'm gonna contribute to this, and I think that was a lot to do with what happened to escalate it even further than where it was.
But it's like, why? What's the fucking point? I just it boggles my mind that people think, oh shit, because I remember, I don't want to get too off topic, but I remember, like you said, last summer, there's that liquor store downtown. They busted open the windows and stuff, and they were just running there grabbing alcohol. And it's like, are you protesting or are you just stealing shit? But I don't want to get too far into that, whatever. But it's the same kind of concept, though. Where you see a chance, you take it, just because it might be the only time you ever get to do it.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. And you're at a basketball game, and people were on the floor that shouldn't have been, and they probably saw, oh, well, hell, security's worried about it, the guys on the court. I'm going to run down there. Or my boy's already on the court throwing punches or, squaring up to JO or whatever. So, I thought it was a good documentary, and there was some things that I was like, oh, shit, I didn't know that. But, I mean, all that was, too, was just bringing up old bad memories for me.
Yeah, that's exactly how it was for me, too. Like, it literally, I started to get infuriated again, like, the same as I felt 17 years ago or whatever it was. Like, the emotions started going, and I'm like, shit, I don't want to feel like this again. But it kept going, man. So, it was I think it was good. I think it was well made. I mean, what else can you say about it? Because I mean, it looks shitty for us. It looks shitty for the Pistons.
Yeah.
I mean, what else can you say about it? It sheds some light into some of the mentality of some of the players. Overall, I thought it was really good. What did you think overall? What was your overall takeaway from the documentary?
I was kind of glad with how they did it, like you said, but for the average NBA fan that maybe isn't a Pacer fan or a Piston fan and kind of remembers that it happened but didn't really remember the consequences of that night because maybe they're a Bulls fan or a Blazers fan or a Laker fan.
Right.
But I did a really good job of kind of setting the scene of like, all right, the Pacers are a couple of years off of their first NBA finals. The Pistons are right there building their dynasty. Ben Wallace, Rasheed Wallace, they were kind of like the Bad Boys Part 2 with what had in the 90s. So I did a really good job of setting up the story, walking you up to exactly what led to that point. They had a playoff series the year before. There was a rivalry brewing. And also, I think they did a really good job of showing maybe kids these days or people in their early 20s that don't remember how badass and how hardcore the 90s NBA was compared to today's like wussification of it where you can flop and all this. So I think they did a really good job of setting that up for everybody as well.
Yeah. That was one thing that I really appreciated about the documentary was, like you said, it kind of highlighted that today's NBA is nothing even close to what the 80s and 90s NBA was. It shows how tough those guys actually were. And the one thing that bugged me about it was they kept using the word thugs about the Pacers. They weren't thugs. No. They played hard, and they cared about one another, and they wanted to win.
Well, and to your point, too, and I don't know if I brought this up to you guys last week or just talking about it earlier in the week, but, Ron Artest has had mental issues, we know, but he has done everything that he can and seems to have his life legitimately together. Steven Jackson was very open, real, and honest throughout this entire documentary, which I really liked.
Very honest,
real. But he's an ESPN analyst for NBA games. Jermaine O'Neal still has a lot of things going for us. Like, it's not like these guys who were called thugs left the NBA and ended up killing somebody or, blowing all their money or, God forbid, becoming homeless or something. So these were guys that, went on to make a second career out of what they had already made in the NBA. So, and these were good players. I mean, Ron Artest went on to win a championship. Ron Artest was a defensive player of the year. Steven Jackson won a championship with the Spurs. I mean, Jermaine O'Neal still is top 5 in so many different categories for the Pacers. So these weren't just like players doing dumb shit. These were like the guys.
They were legit. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So okay, I know you're totally busy, man. We will let you go. I know you've got stuff going on tonight. Anyway, I appreciate you being on, man. A lot of insights into the documentary. And catch you at the Tony D podcast. Anything else, man?
No, thanks again, Tony. We really appreciate you coming on.
All right.
anytime, guys. Ready to go racing this weekend, and hopefully the White Sox going to win.
Yes, yeah. Thank you, man.
Anybody but the pinstripes.
Take it easy, man.
Yes, sir. See you guys.
Bye.
Thanks.
See ya. And we're back. We have another special guest tonight. Tony was great. We had some great insights on the Mouse of the Palace documentary, and got a few insights from him. Now we have Kevin Bowen from 93.5 and 107.5thefan.com, and now, starting tomorrow, one of the hosts of the Fan Morning Show. So that's pretty awesome, man. Well, I've heard you on there quite a few times, and I was wondering when you were actually going to get the full-time job.
Appreciate that. I will say before we start, Tony Donohue, I know full well, probably gave some great insight, but I couldn't encourage people more to see that Mouse at the Palace documentary. My wife and I watched it last night, and I don't know if I could hate Pistons fans anymore, but I think that's only gone up, and honestly, my love for Jermaine O'Neal continues to rise as well. So it brought up a whole wave of emotions, but I did enjoy watching that.
Yeah, that was one of the things I talked to Tony about was, like, I remember watching it that night when it happened, and I was so furious. Like, I was just in a rage, and because I've been a lifelong Pacers fan, and it died down over the years, whatever. Last night, it just brought out all those emotions again, especially, the fan that he still says, I didn't do anything wrong, blah, blah, blah.
Oh my gosh.
I'm like, are you serious, man? Like,
I want to hit that dude in the face.
Dude, seriously, man.
You're not the only one.
Dude, so yeah, I mean, it was well made. It gave a lot of insights that maybe some of us didn't know about. So yeah, they did a great job on it. But I want to talk to you about the Colts. So I know you were out at camp today. They did a little practice against the Panthers. Who stood out? Who kind of let you down? I know there are a few injuries. Hines and a couple other guys got injured. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it might have been the best day for Jacob Eason and Sam Ellinger combined all camp. They were 20 of 26 combined, which, again, just by itself, that stands out. I mean, 20 of 26, really good numbers. Yeah. Now, some of that's red zone, so, you can go two ways there. You can have a higher percentage because it's a small area of field, or, it's either kind of completion or you're throwing it out of the end zone, something like that. So I thought both of them kind of let it loose in the red zone. And, why I say it's their best day, in my opinion, today was the first time they've ever seen another team in the NFL.
Yeah.
Both of them.
Right.
So I think when we look at both of their, evaluations, whatever, grade reports, something like that, you do have to grade them on a bit of a curve. And the fact that they hadn't seen an NFL defense outside of the Colts, it was a pretty windy day there late. Mother Nature was kind of rearing her ugly head as well, and especially Ellinger. You worry about arm strength. And I thought both of them had a really nice day. Not perfect by any means for the offense. The O-line had issues, and they're banged up. And Carolina's front has a lot of first-round talent, and that showed up. I mainly watched the offense today, but I thought it was a really good day for the QBs.
Good.
Which, if you could pick one or the other, which one of the two QBs really stood out more?
Yeah, I'd probably say Ellinger. He had 9 in a row to start practice. His red zone efficiency, I thought, was just a tick higher than Easton. I did think Easton threw probably his best ball at camp, a kind of a frozen rope to Kylan Granson, the rookie out of SMU, in the end zone for a touchdown. But I'll be the first one to admit I definitely underestimated Sam Ellinger entering this camp. I've been talking to some people close to the Texas program, and they're not too shocked by this, just because he just kind of grows on you the more you watch him. And certainly when you watch him 1-on-1, 7-on-7. His arm talent isn't what, some of your other QBs are, but the guy just has a way about him, and, it's all going to come down to traits. If they want to go, or if they have to go that route, I should say week one, him or Eason, what do you want? Do you want the big arm, a little bit more volatility? Do you want a guy that can scramble a little bit, will probably have good command, can process things well, but is not going to get the ball, too far down the field. So I think that's a debate for the staff here over the next 3 or 4 weeks.
I saw one highlight from Strawn today. I mean, I know over the past week or so he's been kind of a highlight machine. what do you see from him going forward? Is he going to be the fifth receiver on the depth chart? Where do you think you see him at?
Yeah, I mean, right now I definitely pencil him in there. But I think something Frank Reich does a really nice job of is if you have a certain skill set, he's going to try to work you into the game plan. And Mike Strawn has a certain skill set, and that's 6'5", 225, which you can't teach. But also a guy that just – it's hard to describe, but, like, it's just not that big for him. I mean, sure, he's had some drops, and there was a miscommunication on a 7-on-7 where he ran the wrong route today. But, like, dude hasn't played college football in nearly 2 years because Division II, didn't play.
Right.
And yet, he just looks like a guy that, is relatively smooth out there. And with big guys, I kind of always feel like they're fighting it with their hands a little bit. I don't get that impression with Strawn either. So for a team that had red zone issues last year, if I were going to go play tomorrow against the Seattle Seahawks, I'd be involving Mike Strawn in a red zone package.
Yeah, definitely.
When you were watching our receivers, obviously we have Ty, we have Michael Pittman, we have Paris Campbell. Is there anyone other than maybe Strawn that you see that could really step up and make an immediate impact come week one?
Yeah, I mean, I like the top four if healthy. Now, I mean, what are we, over 2 weeks into camp, and I don't think Paris Campbell's missed a day. So that's pretty good on that front. Zach Pascal's just Mr. Reliable. You kind of look at the box score at the end of the game, and you're like, wait, what? Pascal had 4 for 58, or something like that. He just kind of does that to you. T.Y. has had a quiet camp. The first time really him and Jacob Eason ever threw, certainly in team settings, was at Grand Park. So, that is something you probably have to take into consideration. I'm super high on Michael Pittman. He had a couple of drops today in one-on-ones, but he had a great toe tap in the back of the end zone as well. So I still think he's going to be the big-time wideout for this team. So those four I like a lot. Unfortunately, just your quarterbacks, I don't think have given them enough of an opportunity to really evaluate them, especially in team settings. I feel like in the team portion of practice, it's been a lot of tight ends, a lot of running backs.
I know there's been a lot of talk about Wentz possibly starting week one. Do you think that's a possibility as of right now?
I'm certainly not like in the Chris Mortensen on track to start week one camp. I think that was a lot of, honestly, maybe even Jim Irsay, speaking there. Now, of course, we heard Jim Irsay a couple times today caution and say, we're going to wait till Carson's 100% to get him out there. Well, with this injury, there's a level of pain tolerance. So, if he's 85% week one, I mean, are you not throwing him out there? That's, based off Jim's comments, that's what he says. And I honestly agree with that side of it. As much as that schedule is brutal early on, you have Tennessee week 3, which is, arguably the most important game of the season. You've got a dude that's had, 7 different injuries over the last, 7 or 8 years. Like, the odds of him going through an entire season and not getting hurt again probably aren't great.
Right.
So I don't think I'd want to throw him out there and risk a different injury.
Yeah.
Early on. And I get it. The schedule's brutal out of the gate, but there is a tad bit of, I think, just kind of long-term view within the season that I think you got to look at here.
Well, and I think the Colts do have the toughest schedule in the NFL. Is that correct?
I don't know if it's toughest in the NFL. I know that start, especially
that first 5 weeks is pretty rough.
That is I think it's the third time in NFL history a team has started 5 straight games with teams that won double-digit games the year before. Yeah,
that's going to be a true test.
Yeah, brutal.
Not to move off of the offensive side of the ball, but coming back to defense, what has Kwity Paye been showing up until his injury and even post-injury?
He's in the boot now.
Yeah, he really, I thought, had a nice first 2 weeks of camp, and like you guys were saying, unfortunately, a right ankle sprain yesterday in the indoor practice. Doesn't sound like it's very major, so that's good news on that front. But, when you look at him, and, for people who've been out of Grand Park, I think we'll see this. When you look at him, you don't think speed rusher. When I look at Kamoko Ture, I think speed rusher. Sure. He's just kind of built, a little bit slender, longer, skinny isn't the right word, but, Ture doesn't look like a guy that's going to throw his head in there on rundowns. You look at Pay and you're like, dude, he's got some tree trunks.
Yeah.
And the fact that he can move as well as he can is pretty crazy. So I've seen more of that athleticism. Now, having said that, and we saw it today, the Colts tackles, and even Braden Smith struggled today. The Colts tackles have been just atrocious, really, throughout camp. So I didn't watch too much of the defense today. Obviously, Pay wasn't out there. I want to watch the defense a little bit more tomorrow just to get a better gauge on where, guys like Donahue, guys like Turay, where they are at, because I just think it's been a tough evaluation for that group considering all the injuries up front.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Is I know everyone's focused on left tackle right now. How bad did that look today?
And they ran Julian Davenport out there, and I believe it was the first play, or definitely the first passing play. And I swear, Brian Burns, I don't even know if Eason had turned around by the time Brian Burns had already swallowed him up. It was just like, God. He just could have stopped the play and taken the ball and done whatever he wanted with it. And obviously, Brian Burns is a very talented pass rusher and whatnot. But still, it's not like Davenport is some undrafted free agent. So, I know people that have heard me talk before. My issue is just the fact that you went several drafts without drafting a tackle.
Yeah.
I feel like something Chris has done a great job of, linebacker. When you have some injuries there, you've got drafted talent behind them. Running back, kind of same thing there. And I get it. You can't have, ready-made drafted talent at every position.
Right.
But, man, when I'm ranking my top positions, left tackle and finding a quality one as a backup is near the top of that list. And you got to trust your coaching staff to develop a little bit. So, instead of getting a bunch of sloppy seconds from around the NFL, which is what you got, I think it's better to, have a guy, middle-ish round pick in there. So, yeah, tackle play has not been good.
Well, speaking of the coaching staff, so Wright got the 5-year extension. Do you think that was? He hasn't obviously haven't won a playoff game. Is that is that validated? I don't think he's really shown that he deserves that much of an extension. Maybe a 2 or 3 year deal. 5 years is a long time, man.
It is a long time. My thing is this. I guess first, how do you look at extensions? Are you paying people off of what they've done? Darius Leonard and Braden Smith. Oh my gosh, hell yeah, they deserve the type of money they got. Now, players are certainly different than coaches, and I feel like how Jim Irsay views it as, I've got something that I love here, and these two guys aligning on the same page, and I'm gonna just kind of my actions back up my words. If we would have this conversation last Thursday, and you would ask me, what does Jim Irsay think of his GM and head coach? I would say, I don't know if he can love them anymore. Yeah. And then now we see this contract extension, and you're like, oh, wow, yeah, that's why. Yeah. Now, having said that, the extension through 2026 doesn't mean that you just kick up your feet and watch these two operate for the next 2 to 3 years. Like, if the division continues to go to other teams, if you aren't making playoff runs, if Carson Wentz doesn't work out, then you have to have some pretty honest conversations here.
Sure.
But anytime you extend a coach and GM for 5 years in the NFL, those expectations are through the roof.
That's
rightfully so.
That's a hell of an extension, That's a long time.
I don't know, this would be a long project for me to do, but I'd be interested to go back and see guys, 3 and 4 years into their 10 years that have gotten those extensions. Mm-hmm. There's no way their resume says no division titles in one playoff.
Right, yeah.
And I'm not I'm not in the camp of oh my gosh, fire them or anything like that. Again, I think they're both going to get it done. It's just Jim Irsay's way of handing out contract extensions, probably a little bit different than me. And the big thing to me is your public accountability just cannot change. That cannot change moving forward.
Yeah. Yep. I have a question. As far as Carson, obviously he's hurt. There's not really much of a timetable on him. Could be week 1, could be week 6. Nobody really knows. What is your thought on going out and maybe trying to trade or sign someone? Do you think that's something that we need to do?
Yeah, the only way I would go down that route is if Wentz was going to miss, I don't know, 9 or 10 weeks of that timetable. And even then, I'd have to be tucked into it. You know, I've always been a fan of you got one eye towards the future quarterback. And Band-Aids are Band-Aids for a reason. Nick Foles has played for how many NFL teams?
Yeah, right.
He's played for those many for a reason. I know he had one of the greatest runs in Super Bowl history. But since then, the dude's thrown 23 touchdowns, 18 picks, and cost $9 million. Like, it's just, you know, I think you got to be honest with yourself in some of these, you know, Band-Aids that you would be bringing in here. So I think the only way is, you know, a combination of things. Eason and Ellinger look like me the next couple weeks. Witt's going to be out a long, long time. And then the price has got to be there too, because, you know, I don't have the cap numbers in front of me, but I want to say, like, you got $8 million left. So I mean,
you don't have much room to work with.
Yeah, you usually want to have 6, you know, for injuries throughout the year. Obviously, draft pick wise, I don't want to part ways with many draft picks when you're already giving up, you know, potentially a first, if not a second next year. So I understand people that want to look in there, and I mean, I'm more in the Minshew camp than the Foles camp. Granted, you know, you hear Urban Meyer come out today. I don't know if I believe that, but you know, they seem to be high on Minshew, at least in a competition right now.
I think that's a full smoke screen. There's no way that they take the number 1 pick and don't start him week 1. I just don't think that's going to happen.
Especially him, you know, when generational word gets thrown around with him so often. But yeah, I mean, to your question, Chad, I like going with one of the young guys already on your roster. But you know, ask me it again in a couple of preseason games.
One more thing. Do you think Leonard's worth that $99 million?
You know, this might sound like a cop-out, but I think a lot depends on how you want to build your roster. To me, if I was building an NFL team, I don't see any off-ball linebacker worth $99 million.
Right.
Now, the Colts have built their team where that position is Derek Brooks. Like, that position means so much. So, that position means, like, I don't know, it means as much as maybe an outside corner means in a press man defense. Sure. You know, like something like that. So I understand it. And, like, as much as the culture, character stuff, you know, people probably hate it, I mean, Leonard is crazy. Like, that dude literally is just, he brings that juice. Yeah. And again, I know a lot of it, people are like, who cares, blah, 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 you know, too much talk, not enough play or whatever. That means a lot to Chris Ballard and Frank Reich. Yeah. Having said that, Leonard's numbers last year are not the best linebacker in the league, $99 million. His numbers the first 2 years, without a doubt. So we talked about earlier with Reich and Ballard. You have now said the standard is here. Yeah. Well, with Leonard, you said the standard is here, and that is a Hall of Fame caliber linebacker. It's a high standard, but his ball production's got to be there because we know how he's not going to be a first down run thumper that is, you know, Ray Lewis, just, you know, clogging up holes. He's a guy that's going to go find the ball, and his ball production's got to get back to that level.
Yeah, he definitely excels, you know, sideline to sideline more so than the typical Ray Lewis run stuffing type guy. You know,
without that, and honestly, in today's NFL, that's probably the linebacker you want to have more of. Now, when you see Derrick Henry twice a year, and you're playing, you know, Baltimore or Cleveland in the playoffs, a couple run-heavy teams, different systems, but some run-heavy teams. That is one issue I have. One, I guess, question mark I have is Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner, great pair. I mean, one of the best in the league. But if those guys are banged up, or you start to get to the second level, can your linebackers hold up in a 60, you know, play kind of, you know, whatever, slobber knocker type of let's just run it at you all day long and see if you're, you know, 218 pound, 200. I don't know what Okereke is. He's probably more in the 230 range.
I was gonna say
see if those guys can hold up.
Speaking of Okereke, how has he looked?
Yeah, I think you know, if I'm making a list of best camps, I don't get probably 2 or 3 names down on the list before I mention him. And finding the ball has been his issue. You know. Yeah. It's something where I remember Irsay talking a few years ago. I mean, he mentioned Okereke's name before he mentioned Nelson or Leonard's name. So the staff has always been high on him, but I think he's had a really good camp. He's been out there every day. You know, he's the Mike linebacker now, without a doubt, with Anthony Walker gone. So Yeah, I think Colts fans should be very pleased with what he's shown.
Real quick, can you go over the injuries today and if there's anything that looks like it's going to be a lingering issue?
Oh, gosh. Well, I guess just a couple updates on guys that have been injured. Pay, like I said, minor. For what it's worth, Nelson was back in a boot. I don't know what that means. Is it something where, that walk from the indoor facility is long, I'm going to put a boot on it,
Right.
I would hope we could get the big man a golf cart. But injuries today in practice. EJ Speed went down in a special teams drill. Didn't look great, to be honest with you. That was a knee injury. He's at a nice camp. You really hate to lose him in such a critical third year.
Yeah.
Danny Pinter with a foot injury. Another guy that right now you can't afford to lose with Ryan Kelly out. So you're down to your third string center for a large portion of practice. Naeem Hines, leg whip. He looked fine for what it's worth.
Okay.
And then I think the rookie Sean Davis got hurt as well. I'm not sure what body part there.
Yeah, I didn't see that one. It might have been after I saw on Twitter, but the only one that really kind of concerned me maybe was Pinter. It seemed like it was, and then Speeds seemed like it was kind of might have been, it could have been something that might keep him out for a little while. We'll see.
What's the word on Pinter's injury? Is it major, minor? Do they not really know much yet?
Yeah, unfortunately, usually after practice, we don't get a whole lot on the severity of it. So, luckily Frank talks to the media again tomorrow, and so hopefully we'll get more of a concrete update there on the timetable.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I know you got to get up early for the big show tomorrow, so definitely appreciate you joining us tonight and giving us some insight into the Colts.
You bet. Good luck with the podcast. Happy to be one of the early guests, and appreciate you guys having me on.
Absolutely, man.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you very much,
All right,
man.
guys. Have a good night.
All right,
You too.
see you. All right. That was Kevin Bowen from 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan, and you'll be able to hear him every morning on the Fan Morning Show, which is pretty cool. We got him the night before his first official
His first
official show, so that's pretty cool. We got plenty of information about the Colts tonight. We had a great discussion about the Malice of the Palace. Good show, man.
It was great. Thank you again to Tony and Kevin for joining us and gracing us with your presence for a little bit. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, guys, stay tuned.